Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Anne Marie with Future Flying Saucers Resources, and today I have Joy Feemster with me, and I really want us to focus on prayer stations. Now, I just had my book come out, Helping Your Children Become Prayer Warriors, and I just really started thinking I want to be able to share with you all very practical other types of activities that you can do with kids to help them learn how to pray. And prayer stations is one of them. And I learned about prayer stations from my friend Joy. So I just decided I might as well just bring her on to share with you what she's taught me. Joy's been in children's ministry for over 20 years. And so I'm excited to learn from her. And I hope that you will be able to take some of the things that she says today, and you can even implement them at your next children's service or event or whatever you have planned in the near future. So, Joy, just explain to us a little bit about what prayer stations even are. What are they?
Okay, well, joining you here from Baby Charlotte's nursery. I'm in Florida visiting my daughter and my little grandbaby. So I have a special, treat here for you. Visual.
So sweet. Baby girl stuff is so fun.
Oh, yeah. But, well, prayer stations is a way to interact more physically with your prayer. It is a way for kids, especially those kids who are not necessarily big on just like sitting and praying quietly, and you have those, right? Everybody has those. It helps them engage with some materials, engage their hands, but also engage their minds and hopefully their hearts in prayer. This works for not only children but for teenagers and adults as well. I've used prayer stations in all those applications, and it just sometimes helps put a focus on your prayer.
Yeah, I have only done prayer stations for adults. That's how I kind of learned about what they were, but I didn't know about trying to use those types of things with kids, because I felt like, at least the ones that I had been exposed to, they seemed really deep, and you had a writing journal, or, you had to go real quietly from station to station so you didn't disturb other people. So, how would I go about starting to think about setting up a prayer station activities?
Well, it depends a lot on the number of kids you have and the space that you have.
Do you need to have a particular type of space?
Well, no, actually you don't. You can do it in a classroom, or if you're doing it at home, you can do it in a room. It really doesn't matter. Awesomeness is to have a big gym available to you, which I did for my after school club. So that was cool. We had plenty of space to sort of spread out. However, I had a lot more kids than you would normally have. So a room, a classroom, a bedroom or living room will work. You just space things apart.
So how many kids, do you need to have a smaller number of kids to do prayer stations, or is it, you can do it with a large number as well?
You could do it with a large number, but you have to sort of calculate the number of your prayer stations and put thought into the fact that you only want one or two kids at each station. You don't want a bunch of kids at each station, because then you are sort of negating what you're trying to do. They need to be involved in what's going on at the prayer station and not each other. So ideally, it's best for one person at each station. Very often what I've done is use long tables and situate one kid on one end of the table and one kid on the other. So they're still in the same station, but they're, not close enough to really interact with each other too much.
I see. So you can set up a station on one long table,
Uh-huh.
So, and then, okay, so you can have 2 at a time. So, um, so how many stations do you need to have? It depends on how many kids you
Depends on
have,
how many
or
kids you
can
have.
you have multiple stations of the same thing?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, if you're trying to focus on praying for, just one or two types of things, like say for instance, um, you have kids who are praying for um, kids in other parts of the world. For instance, you have a missionary in your church and you're praying for the missionary, you're praying for the kids they work with or whatever. Well, then you might have them focused on praying for those specific types of things, and you could have more than one area set up for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then you could have just prayer stations on a wide variety of things, spaced out all around the room.
Okay.
Or if you are, like a homeschool mom or whatever, you can simply, it can be done as very simply as set up a station in a corner of a room, one station, and let each child go to it separately at a separate time.
Yeah. So what about ages? I mean, is this something that you can only do with upper elementary, or do kids need to be able to read?
No, they don't actually. It depends on how you are setting stations up. You can do prayer stations because I've done it with like kindergartners who can't read yet.
Mhm.
Um, you don't necessarily have to have the ability to read. What you do have to have, if you have someone that age, is someone to explain what they're supposed to do at the station.
Mm. Okay.
Um,
So
and,
you
and
might need to have some adult volunteers to help you
right.
if you have younger children.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Otherwise, from the time of reading, and you don't want to make the directions too involved and print them clearly.
Mhm.
And they can always, like raise their hand if they have a question, like something they don't understand,
Right.
that you come and, help them out.
Okay. So we need to think about if we're going to have, like what you said, praying for missionaries, that's like a more specific purpose for your prayer stations, or you can have prayer stations on a variety of different
Hmm.
topics or that type of thing. So we just have to, if you're going to plan something like this, you need to think about what your objective is
Right. Hmm.
for the prayer. Okay.
Right.
So let's say we do a couple of different topics. What are some examples of different stations that you could set up?
Okay. Well, my goodness, it's as varied as anything you can possibly think to pray to God about. I mean, so that's everything, right? So it
Right.
can be anything. But an example of one is, and this is really good for younger children too, but younger and older children like this one. It's I call it blessing blocks, and it's just large Legos, the Duplos or whatever,
Mhm.
just a pile of them, and a big pile of them, and you take a block and you put it down, and you think of a way that God has blessed you, and you thank Him for it and praise Him for it. And then you pick up another block and you think of another way and you stack it on the first. And the objective is to, during the time that you have at that station, to think of as many ways as that God has blessed you, and
Mm.
thank Him for it in that station. That's just one.
And
Um,
what a great visual that is at
yeah.
how God builds upon the blessings that
Hmm.
He gives us.
Yeah. Higher,
So you have
higher,
your basic, and then it builds upon it. Yeah.
and another way to use Legos or Duplos like that is to pray for people who don't have homes. Literally build a little house as you pray for them.
Mm.
Simple things, simple things, but gives them something concrete to do, and focuses their thoughts on it.
Right. This seems like this type of activity would be good for those who might have children with special needs in their ministry too, because of it being tactile,
Uh-huh.
and able to move around, and it's specific, so it's not so overwhelming.
Right, I would
Um,
think so. And certainly you can gear it for your, because you know your children better than anyone else does. So you can gear it to however you know you think will work for your kids. I mean, you could take all kinds of examples of prayer stations and then tweak them for your own kids, which I've done countless times.
right. Well, what's some more examples? What were some of your favorites?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. We have a couple of ones that feature a globe, and then another one that features a map. And the globe is kind of like spin the globe, put your finger down, and pray for the people in that place. And that sounds
Mhm.
extremely simple, and it is, but it gives you the opportunity to think about other places in the world, and you know, and if you know anything about that area of the world, then you might know some things to pray about. And if you don't, then maybe that's an area to find out about afterward, so
Mhm.
that next time you can pray better. A map, we took a map and sort of just tore it, where it was hanging on the wall, but just sort of in shreds. And there was just a little place there where they could just sit and quietly pray for our lost and broken world.
Mhm.
um, just think about those kinds of things in the world that they hear about every day, and pray, you know, pray about those things.
Now, do you have directions typed out for each?
Yes,
How do kids know what to do at each station?
they have a little, you know, the little uh, card holders that you use like at weddings or whatever, that hold the little place cards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I bought a boatload of those years ago, and I write the directions in Sharpie, so they're nice and clear, on
Mm-hmm.
an index card, and stick them right in the thing. You don't have to do that. You can, you know, just write them on an index card or a piece of paper and lie them flat next to yours. That just happens to be the way I do mine a lot of times.
Okay. Okay. And
And,
so then when
but
they travel around, I'm sorry?
there are clear directions at each one.
Okay. And then so when they travel around, they just read it,
Yeah,
and so they know what to do. Okay.
right.
Right. So what else? What's another example?
Well, one of my favorites is called At the Cross, and I can't take credit for this because it's one I found on Pinterest a long time ago. I'm not really even sure whose it is, but so there's that. I'll tell you that right up.
That's
Um,
good.
but you draw a large cross on poster board,
Hmm.
and then on one side of the cross you have a container with black rocks in it. And on the other side of the cross, you have a container with clear stones, like you buy at the dollar store or somewhere,
Hmm.
in it.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they come and they pick up a black rock and they hold it and they think of their sins. Okay.
Mhm.
And they're to think personally and carefully about their own sins that they've done even that day or whatever. And they're to pray and ask God for forgiveness, thank Him for His forgiveness, thank Him that they're forgiven in Jesus at the cross, what
Mhm.
Jesus did. And then they put their black rocks onto the cross, and then they pick up a clear stone and they can carry it away with them, put it in their pocket or something to show that their sins have been washed away.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
What a
I do.
great picture.
It's beautiful visual, and I love it, and I like the fact that it's something they can take away with them, and
Right.
so when they put their hand in their pocket and they touch that stone, they'll remember what it is.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, what's some more? This is good.
One that I thought of was I actually had them getting underneath a desk that we had. We had a heavy dark tablecloth over the desk, and there's a little flashlight, but they're to go under there and without turning the flashlight on at first, sit in the dark and think about what it's like to be in the dark, and think about the people they know who don't know Jesus, who are literally in the dark.
In the darkness.
Yeah. And then they turn on their little flashlight and pray for those people, and pray that they'll come to know Jesus and to have the light of Jesus in their lives.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great thing. And that is so simple. It's not
Yeah.
like you have to go out and
No,
buy gobs of materials
no,
in
you
order
do,
to
you
do
cannot.
this.
A lot of times you can make prayer stations just out of stuff you have around the house or around your classroom, whatever. I wouldn't recommend going out and buying a bunch of stuff, because it's really not needed. It's simple, simple stuff. And the kids, they really interact with these things. The first time I did them, I was not sure how they were going to react, but I have never gotten anything less than a positive reaction from kids from kindergarten all the way through, seniors in high school. I've never gotten anything less than a positive reaction from them.
Now, what type would you do the same type of stations for middle school and high school as you did with the younger ones, or what are some examples that you would do with older kids?
Um, I would. There's some of them I wouldn't change, because even simple ones, because they need that simplicity to to just concentrate, focus on that one thing. But some of the ones that I might do is to have, because this is a little bit more abstract, but have different pairs of shoes in a station, and then give like a little scenario for those shoes. This is a construction worker, and he's working hard for his family, long hours. Pray for the hardworking dads in the world, supporting their families. These little shoes, these belong to a child in the children's hospital. Pray for, children like that, things like that. And so there's scenarios. So that's just a little bit different, but that might be something that I would do.
Oh, that's okay. Let's take time to do one more example. What's one more that you can think of?
Well, there's a little trick, and I have to. It's in our science camp stuff, but basically, you use a toothpick and a marshmallow, and you put it on your wrist at your pulse point. This is really for older kids and teenagers, and if you put it in the right place, you'll literally see your heartbeat.
Oh, because it sits on your wrist and you can see it
Yes,
go up
yes,
and down.
yeah. And so I use that one, just to thank God for how miraculously He's made us, and thank Him for every heartbeat.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. Okay, so we've got all these examples, and someone's ready to execute this type of prayer station event. What are just a few tips of advice you'd give leaders as they're going through, like as their kids are going through the prayer stations, and then what do you do to end the activity and any follow-up type stuff?
Okay. Well, you want to have a talk with them first, a brief talk about, okay, this is something different. This is prayer. It's meant to be reflective. Okay, so we're not going to just swarm through these activities, just do the activities and get done. It's not a race.
Right.
Okay. And if there's a way to work it out where they don't go to the prayer stations in any particular order, that kind of gives them help, because if you number them, sometimes they think, okay, let me knock number 2, 3, and 4 out real quick, that kind of thing. So if they can not go in a particular order, that's great. But sometimes you just have to, in order, depending on the size of group you have. But yeah, explain to them that it's supposed to be reflective. that they're supposed to be stopping and thinking that this is not just an activity to do, but this is to draw them closer to God.
Mhm.
And then I would, if at all possible, bring down the lighting if you have a
Mm.
way to do that.
Okay.
Sometimes in some classrooms, there's no windows or anything, so it's very difficult to do that. But if you have the possibility, if you have a classroom like that and you have the option, if you can bring in like some lamps or something, so there's still light, so they can read their directions and see what they're doing, but it's just lower, and it gives them, the idea that this is something different that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then the main thing really is to just make sure that there's not too many at one station. That as much as possible, if you can do one kid at one station, that's the best way of doing it. But a lot of times you have to, you just have more kids than that. So if you can break up the stations so that uh, they're on each end of a table, or at a big round table where there's maybe only 4 kids, so that they're not interacting with each other as much as the things that they're supposed to be working with. And I don't worry about putting them all on tables. I put them on the floor, wherever makes sense, but space them as far apart as you can
Mm. So
to
having
allow.
a gym, like if you have a lot of kids,
Yeah.
in the gym is a great idea
Oh
because
yeah,
it's spread out.
absolutely. A gym or a big fellowship hall, something like that. That's great. Even I've even done it in a hallway, like a big long hallway, rather than in their classroom. If you don't have anybody that you're going to be disturbing, or you can just tell them, hey, this is what is. So maybe it would be a great learning thing for the adults to see that the children are doing prayer stations. You do those
Mm.
prayer stations all down the hall in different places, and put notices up, shh, children praying, whatever. Might be
Yeah,
a really cool, might be a really cool thing.
that's a neat idea. I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Okay, so what should the adults be doing? So make sure that there's not more than 2 or 3, maybe 4 people, 4 kids at a center at a time. And then how do you end everything?
Well, typically you end everything because you have a specific time, and you just tell them, that we have this much time, and don't feel like you have to get to all of the stations.
Okay.
If And that's one thing that, like, there may be one station that some child is particularly involved with. Let them stay and be involved. If that's really what they're doing. If they're just messing around, of course, move them on. But if they seem really involved with it, let it go. And let them stay there a little longer. When a child is obviously finished and ready to move on, you just have to have heads up and be looking,
Mhm.
and try to direct them to another available one, not necessarily the next in a row or whatever, but just another available one. And and let them know that when they're going from one station to the other, that they should try to be quiet, to show respect to the other kids around them. It's not
Right.
necessarily going to be silent or anything like that, but
Right.
just the whole thing of having the lights a little dim and knowing that they're doing something different. Also, if you play some soft reflective music in the background, that helps,
Mhm.
because then they can't hear their clatter quite as much.
Right. So what do you do with the kids that, kind of move their way all the way through the stations and they're done, but you still have kids that are still going through? What do you do with them?
Well, then you can either have them go back to a station that's open,
Mm.
or you can have them go sit somewhere quietly, and with paper, and they can write out the names of people that they need to pray for, or situations they need to pray for, or whatever. And then you can have them folded up, and at the end you can put it in a little box labeled letters to God, and just put them in there.
Okay. And then how do you end everything?
Well, then you just turn up the lights, turn off the music, and say, "All right, everybody, we're done." And then bring everybody back to a central location and sort of debrief, um, and ask them, did you feel like your prayers were heard? Ask those kinds of questions. Did you feel like your prayers were heard? Did you feel like you heard from God? If so, what did you feel like? What was the impression you got? Um, that you thought, and be sure and write those things down.
Mhm.
And then do an ending prayer with everyone together, and and that would be the end of it.
Oh, I just love it. I just I just think prayer stations are such a great practical hands-on way to teach kids about prayer, but then actually do it and then show kids that they can pray about anything,
Hmm.
and it doesn't matter if you're under a table or sitting in a chair
Right.
or standing up, or if it's dark or light, or if you're alone or by yourself, or alone and by yourself is the same thing,
Right.
or with a group of people. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Pray
uh,
every day in every way. Yeah.
right, I just love that. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk
Oh,
about
no problem.
a
I'm so
greatly.
glad to be able to help. I love prayer stations, and I hope that people will be kind of inspired to try out a few. I have a um, fairly massive Pinterest board that has a whole bunch of them that you're welcome to go to and try them out. Most of them are not mine that I created, just some that I thought were interesting, and most of them I have used. And if you have any questions about any particular ones or how to set something up, feel free to contact me via my email, which I'm sure Anne-Marie can provide, and I'll be glad to help you out.
That is great. And then where is your website where they can find you?
Okay, which is under construction at the moment, but
Okay, mine's about to be too.
it's enjoyingkidmen.com. Yeah,
Enjoyingkidman.com.
enjoying Kidmen.
I love it. I love it. So thank you so much, Joy. And I hope you all got a lot of great ideas and that you're excited to try some of these activities. I also, on my Pinterest for underneath Future Flying Saucers, I have a prayer and prayer activities board. You can go look in there for some ideas. And obviously, this video, ask questions or put comments in the post, and Joy and I will take a look over the next, I don't know, day or so, and see if we can comment back. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Joy.